In this lesson, we are going to discuss how to draw shapes. Shapes are essentially the building blocks of so many things that you will illustrate in Illustrator. So we can start off with squares, circles, we can do polygons, we can do all kinds of different shapes. But remember, once you draw out a shape, you can then manipulate it to make other kinds of shapes out of those shapes. So even though we're going to start off with basic shapes, doesn't mean that you can't do more complex shapes once you begin those basic shapes. So let's go ahead and see how we can draw out some shapes. So you'll notice over here I have on the left hand side, I have this option for a rectangle. If you right click on it, you're going to see a little flyout menu appears. We can do rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, and so on. Now I can also use my little flyout menu to make this pop right out, and then this is going to be floating here anytime I want to use it. I can certainly collapse it, make it go this direction, or I can go collapse it this direction, or I can close it out and do that way as well. Let's go ahead and right click again and come out, and I'm going to have this expand out and just kind of have that sit there. Now I'm just going to just draw out initially my just perfect square. So I'm going to click on this, and the first thing I want to think about is, well, what color do I want that square to be? Because currently I have no color at all as my fill, and I'm going to have this dark gray color as my stroke. And you'll also notice up here that the stroke will then come in at 7 points. Now I want to change all of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click here on my foreground fill color, and I'm just going to go ahead and just choose any old color if I want to. You can go ahead and put in your RGB and your CMYK if you know what that is. And just very simply, I'm going to click OK. And now I have the color here, and you can also see it up there. That's ready to go. All right, now let's see what we can do to draw out our perfect square. Now you'll see here I have this little diagram for us to work with. I'm just going to click and drag while holding down the Shift key and just draw it out. Now why did I hold down the Shift key? Now I want to constrain the proportions, right? That's why you do the Shift key. So now you can see here perfectly I have got a square. Now keep in mind now that shapes are vector graphics. And later on, we're going to talk more about vector graphics. We've already talked a little bit about it, but when you're working with vector graphics, we have these little anchor points that come out that I can use my direct selection tool to then select and manipulate. Okay, but if I want to just resize this very quickly and easily, I can go to my regular selection tool and then just simply click and drag that in. All right, I can make it taller if I want to, just like that. You can manipulate just the way that you work with any other object. So very simple, very cool. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just select it, and then if I wanted to now change the color of this, very easy to do that. I can go over to here, double click, it's still selected, and I'm going to go over here to blue. Fantastic. And now that will turn blue. Now let's say I wanted to change the stroke. Well, let's go over to here, and I'm going to change this to a much thicker stroke width, and you can see, bam, I have that. And let's go ahead and resize that, bring this in, and you can see beautifully I have this nice square. Okay, let's go ahead and draw out a few more. I'm going to delete this now, and this time I'm going to draw out a circle, but this time I'm going to draw a circle concentrically. I'm going to use some keyboard shortcut combinations to do that. So let's go ahead and choose my circle there, and that's nice. And let's go ahead and choose a different color this time, and I'll choose yellow. And this time I do not want a stroke. So what I'll do is come over to here to my stroke color and then very simply choose this little slash right there. And that's telling me I'm going to have no stroke on that at all. I'm going to have a yellow fill. Now notice here I have this little crosshair. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt and Shift key at the same time. If you're on the Mac, it's going to be the Option and the Shift key. And I'm going to draw this out concentrically. You can see that. And you can see I can have a perfect circle coming in from the middle and also coming in from the middle to make it even a little bit bigger. And you can see I now have this perfect circle, and it's coming in directly from that middle point because of those keyboard shortcuts. Now you can see here I've got this little note here to tell you exactly what to do in case you forget. All right, so that's really nice, very simple, very easy to do. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at maybe one more. I'm going to delete that, and let's just do a rounded rectangle. And this time I'm not going to hold down the Shift key. I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag just like that. And you can see here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see here I have a rounded corner radius in order for me to have rounded corners. That's essentially what we're talking about when we have a corner radius. We have rounded corners. Now if I wanted to make all of these now be a little bit more rounded, I can go back over to here to my direct selection tool and just simply click and drag on that. and they all now become even more rounded, a higher corner radius. All right, now if we go to our properties panel, you're going to see here that I'm going to see all kinds of different options here. Now, what you might not see that's hiding inside over here in my properties panel, inside of the transform part, is you can see that there's this little ellipsis. When you click on that, it says more options, and now we'll be able to see all of my corner radius options that I now just created. So now if you keep your eye on that, as I click and drag this, right, one more time, bigger, keep an eye on that number. It disappears, of course, and you can see now instead of that 26, now it's 12. All right, but of course, if I know exactly the one I want, I'm just going to say 10 and then hit tab, and then bam, they all become 10 millimeters as far as my corner radius goes. Okay, so lots of cool stuff that we can do there. All right, to have a little bit more visual interest, maybe a little more of a contemporary look and feel. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and now let's try a different shape. This time we're going to do a polygon shape. Now, polygon just basically means like anything that's not a circle and that's not a four-sided square. So what I could do is I can draw out even a triangle if I wanted to, an octagon, you know, so all kinds of different shapes with multi-sides. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to simply just click and then just click anywhere. And you'll notice that as soon as I click anywhere, this comes up, giving me the option for how many sides do I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose 3. I click OK. And now just like that, I have a triangle, and I can just come over to here and resize it. And now if I wanted to rotate this, I can then go back to my regular selection tool and then rotate it. And you can see here I get my little button hook, and then maybe I'm going to make like an arrow of some kind. Just like that. That's how I'm going to start off. That's pretty neat, and then that's how that's going to be, just like that, and then resize it this way. You kind of play with it until you're kind of, that's the beginning of my shape of sorts. But just notice how this also has the option for changing my corner radius. You see that there? And you can see there it is there as well. So just know that all of these corners have the option for corner radii manipulation if you like. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of it this time. And let's go ahead now and do a different size. So let's choose a different color just for fun. I'll go ahead and choose this nice little violet color. Again, clicking one more time, and I'm just going to do 6. Click OK. All right, and now that's the size that it is. Come over to here, and just note that when I go back to my properties panel, I do have the option then to transform my width and my height. I have the option also to adjust the X and Y value where I want it to be located on the canvas. I also have the ability to put in more precise options like my rotation. So for example, I wanted to rotate that a little bit. Just notice how it rotated just like that. I also have options for flipping both vertically and horizontally if you want to. And then also, once again, let's go over here to our ellipsis, and we can see here how we have different options for now increasing this number of sides, which is really, really cool. Okay, but it's really, really hidden. Okay, so let's just say I want to make this into 8 sides. Just like that, I can make that all over again without having to then recreate it from the beginning. So that's kind of neat. Let's keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, wow. Really cool. Now it is 18-sided. Okay, but let's go ahead and bring that back down to 3, for example. Now I've created a triangle. Okay, so really neat. But again, understanding that all these things are going to be hidden. All right, so let's go ahead and just do one last one here. You can see how I can now make an equal triangle just by clicking on that, make all sides equal. Okay, very good. Now let's do one last thing, something really fun. We're now going to work on creating a star. So I'm going to click on the star and then just simply click anywhere here. And you'll see how I get different options that now appear. Well, how many points do I want on the star? Well, let's just go up to 10. All right, and let's just see what we have here. Okay, we have this radius that's going to be about 9 millimeters, and this radius is going to be about 17. Well, I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and let's just see what that does for me. Go back to my regular selection tool, make this nice and big. Okay, that's pretty cool, and we can see what that does. Maybe you got the beginning of Lisa Simpson's haircut. All right, pretty cool, and that's how you're going to start that off. Right? So it could be a lot of different things. Maybe this is a frame of sorts. It doesn't necessarily have to be a star in the conventional sense. Let's go ahead now and do a very different kind of star. So I'm going to click on this, click one more time, and now this time, for my radius, I'm going to have a very small for my radius 1. I'll do 2 here. And then for this, I'm going to do 20. And then I'm going to make it be 20 points. Let's just see what that does. So now we can see we get a very, very different look. Okay, so now when I click and drag on the outside, I get a very interesting kind of star. All right, and I can even change the color, of course. Let's go ahead and make that kind of yellowish again. Click OK. And now you can see something very interesting now. Now that star actually kind of looks like a sun. A little bit more creative, a little more visual interest, a little more kind of dynamicism. All right, now let me show you just one last really cool little nuance, little trick you can do while you're drawing out any shape in case you wanted to increase or decrease the number of sides or points if you're talking about a star. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to go to my polygon. And if you recall, my polygon last time was 6 points. Okay, but this time when I draw it out, I'm going to click and drag. I'm just going to just tap on my arrow keys, right? Going up and down. And you can see on the fly dynamically, I can now decide how many sides I want. Bam. So I can change it there as I'm drawing it. Pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's do it now with stars. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click and drag, and now I'm going to go down. See that? Not letting go of the mouse. And I'm just going to tap on the arrow keys. Okay, just up and down, up and down. Let's go ahead and go crazy with this. Very neat. I let go, and now I've got a lot more points than I did when I started, and it's very easy to change that on the fly as you're drawing it out. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video, practice that, and we come back. We'll have some more tips and tricks on different types of things that you can draw. See you in a bit.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.